So AutoFill is now a thing that they're just going to apply to all of the queues. And for those that don't know what AutoFill quite is, the way draft mode works, whether it's ranked or it's normal, is pretty much there's 5 roles in League of Legends. There's top lane, jungle, mid, AD carry, also known as just bot lane, and then the support. Now the way this works is that right now, or at least how it was, is that you queue up for one role, let's say your main role, let's say you're a mid laner, so you queue up for mid, and then you have to have a secondary role. And the idea was they wanted to make queue times kind of short, as quick as possible, things like that. So they added secondary role, in which case you had to have a secondary role that once you queued up and try to get placed in the game, if you couldn't get your first role, because it'd be quicker to give you just your second role, boom, at least you're in a game pretty quick. And in the past, I've spoken out against this because I'm the kind of person that would rather wait 10 minutes to get my guaranteed role than have like a 2-minute queue and get my secondary role like all the time. I don't even want my secondary role 1 out of 9 times. I just want my role. I don't want to have to play something else. Now granted, in their defense, they have made it so that you will guarantee get your role and things like promos and stuff, but even that's not really good if I can't reach those promos because I keep getting a different role than the role I want to play. That's a video for another time. This video is just explaining AutoFill, and pretty much what it is, for those that don't know, is before it was only a higher elo thing because they want pro players to be able to get as much practice time in as possible, even if it wasn't on their role, but just practice time in the game. So what would happen is you'd queue up for 2 roles, and then AutoFill would give you potentially one of the other 3 roles you didn't queue up for if it would guarantee you a faster queue time. And for me, I feel like it's just a step backwards because ultimately, look, they want to merge blind pick and draft mode eventually, take the best of both and make them into one queue. The blind pick, in my opinion, honestly, is terrible. I don't like it and I hate it. But draft mode, at least the one that they had made for the past season, was okay. I didn't like secondary role, but even then, at least it was better than getting like the other 3 roles that I'd never queued up for because I didn't want to play those roles, either because I'm bad at them or I just really don't want to play those roles. For example, I don't like playing jungle and support because I feel like when your team is behind, it is very hard to do anything impactful from that point forward, especially if you're playing support, because you can put all the vision down that you want, but I'll have teams that will just ignore the vision, they'll keep chasing deep, and they just won't do anything I need them to do. And because I'm support, I don't really have damage, I can't carry the game myself, unless I just forsake like the sight stone and stuff like that, which at that point I might as well, since no one's really using it anyway, just skip the sight stone. But that's my point is, in an ideal world, those are 2 roles that I feel like when you're behind it's very hard to do things. Even though with junglers, there are carry junglers, so it is possible to do more from that role. When you're behind, it's usually, or I guess in this scenario with the jungler specifically, when I say behind, I mean you're not out of laning phase yet and all of your lanes are getting their faces kicked in, and there's very little you can do to stop that, right? Like ideally what you do is, if one lane's getting ran over and they're just getting bodied, you don't gank that lane. You actually gank another lane and snowball that and try and even it up that way, because by ganking the fed lane, you just might feed whoever's fed that much more and make it very much harder to come back to the game. But if you just go and snowball your mid Yasuo, or you snowball like your top laner or something like that, then even if the bot lane got fed, the top laner might be equally as fed, and the top laner is probably going to have more agency. They could probably 1v1 the animated carry even if they're Vayne, if their Vayne's not too fed perhaps. Maybe not, that's not a good example. But if it's like a Jinx, if Jinx is fed, but your like top lane Darius is equally as fed, if not more fed, because he's a solo laner, so he's got more experience and more farm, maybe even half an item up on her, he'll probably be able to destroy her still, and in which case everything's fine. However, if all your lanes are getting kicked in, it's the same scenario, but 3 times as worse, because you still don't want to gank a losing lane, but now you kind of have to, or you just power farm, and then you're still going to be useless, because if all of your lanes are losing, it means the enemy jungler never has to worry about ganking. So what can they worry about? Just deep invading. So while you're trying to power farm, the enemy jungler is either finding you, and then you're going to have to fight anyway, or they're clicking your camps across the map, and then you're just having less and less farm, and then you're not even getting assist farm from ganks, etc, etc. This is kind of its own video that I should have made, but ideally that's part of why I guess I'm saying, laying the groundwork of why I don't like the idea of AutoFill, on the grounds that they also took away position exclusion. When they were going to enable AutoFill for all queues, including normal draft, they were going to give you the option of saying you could queue up for 2 roles, you might get every other role, but this one role that you get to exclude. For example, if you hate supporting, you could exclude support, queue up for say bot lane and mid, and you could get bot lane and mid, but sometimes you might get top lane and jungle, but you would never get support ever. That lane was excluded. That was it. Apparently, in testing, this had a negative impact on queues, so they're taking away the exclusion part of it, so now you could queue up for 2 roles and get the other 5 roles. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world if you're someone that's like the opposite of me. You'd rather have faster queue times, more queue time, or not more queue time, but faster queue times and more games into practice over, having your specific desired role. Maybe you're someone that just loves feeling. You'll play any role. You just want to play the game either to have fun or you actually want to get better at every role. Well, then this is probably going to be a little bit nice for you on the grounds of, as apparently, this will make queue times faster and get you into games quicker. Like I said, I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. I'd rather have the longer queue times but guaranteed my role because I only want to play one role. I might want to play a second role sometimes every now and then, but I don't like I said, the impact that I feel I don't have in some of these other roles if we're behind. So we always would have to be winning. That's not really a fair expectation, in my opinion, of my teammates. Like, sometimes you're just going to have a bad team. Whether they're having a bad day, they counterpicked themselves, they got counterpicked, they're just tilted, they were on a winning streak, and this was finally the game that breaks the winning streak. Like, something's going to happen that the game's not going to be in your control all the time, right? Like, sometimes you're going to lose. And to lose off of something like this, though, in my opinion, just kind of sucks, though, because it's like, well, yeah, I lost playing like top lane because I'm not a top laner. I don't know how to play top lane. I don't know how to CS with this champion. It's the only top laner I have. I don't know this matchup. I don't even know if I win this matchup or maybe I lose this matchup. There's just certain variables and things that aren't in your control when something like that happens. And yeah, I feel like I am complaining just a bit too much about this. Like, it's not as bad as I'm making it seem. These are just like my 3 cents on it, though. Try and make the video a bit different than other people that will come out with autofill videos about whether it's good or bad, because there are some upsides. Like I said, the queue times will be faster. If you want to play fill or you like playing fill more often, well, here's your chance. You might get one of the other roles that you don't queue up for. And because you get more games in, because even if you lose or win, more games, meaning more practice, means you'll just get naturally better at the game. That's kind of how it works, not just with this, but with anything. If you're learning how to do free throw shots, right, in basketball, you can learn information, of course, of how to do free throw shots, right? You can look up how people do it. You can look up like form, things like that. But ultimately, the way you're going to get better at free throw shots is to then apply it yourself, right? Because even if you learn like the best form to do a free throw shot, maybe because of your height, for example, you overshoot the hoop or you undershoot the hoop. Like, you have to go out there and actually get a feel for it yourself. And that's the way this game works as much as anything works. You're going to have to do it a bunch repetitively over and over. Practice makes perfect to get it down. So this won't be like the worst thing in the world that I'm kind of making it out to be. So I somewhat apologize for that. But at the same time, my issue is I love Team Builder. I'm one of those kind of guys, to give you an idea. I love Team Builder. I love the idea of, hey, I just want to play this one role, practice this one champion, we're good to go. I wait 15 minutes, fine. League is time consuming. It's never not been time consuming. I don't think they're ever going to come out with a mode that's like, hey, this is a 5-minute game mode. Go have fun, right? Like, maybe co-op versus AI is the closest thing to that, right? Like, hey, I'm going to be late for my bus. Can we just like win this game as fast as possible? And sure enough, here's a 12-minute victory because it's bots, right? It's beginner bots at that, right? Okay, fine. But like, ultimately, the way I see League is I see it as something that's going to take a lot of time to play. You play it when you have a lot of time in your hands, right? So with that said, I don't mind longer queue times, and I'm opposed to autofill, to be honest. I don't like the idea that's going to be applied now to normal drafts even. So not even outside of ranked. Now it's going to be in normals, right? Like, ranked, it was one thing, right? You might want to get some games over with, get as many games in as you possibly can, try and climb, etc., etc. But in normals, which is supposed to be like the practice mode to ranked, now you got to deal with that in there too. Suddenly you're playing support and you play top and jungle and you're like, this isn't really good practice. This game is a throwaway game. And part of the problem there is that people are like, I'm just not going to take this game seriously because this game doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to me, right? So that is one of the issues that has been brought up in both Reddit and other places. It's just like, hey, won't this actually increase negative player behavior because they're going to get something like this and they're going to be like, I just don't care about this game. I don't care about the outcome of this game because this is no benefit to me whatsoever. This isn't good practice. I can't do nothing with this. Thanks a lot, autofill, because this is not helpful like at all. I can't do nothing with this. Ultimately, I have to admit, that's kind of how I feel about mid lane. Like, mid lane doesn't help me practice for AD carry, so when I get mid lane, I don't feel good about getting mid lane. I don't troll and I don't feed or intent or anything like that. I do try my hardest to win, but I'm not good at mid lane. I don't know the matchups very well. I can only play Victor decently, so I mean, it's not necessarily a good time for all parties involved. But that's all for this video. I wanted to let you be able to add your own opinion about what you think about autofill and then the lack of role exclusion coming with it to all queues, including normals. But that's all for this video. Thank you for watching if you did watch this far. Life is full of a lot of kinks, so I don't know which video will be next, so until next time, take care. From the Fire Guy FS.